Browns quarterbacks. We've got Joe Flacco. We've got Kenny Pickett. We have Dillon Gabriel, and we have Shedeur Sanders. The Shedeur Sanders lightning rod discussion here. And we know all camp for the Browns. Who's taking the snaps? Who's stepping onto the field first between Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders? Who's going to take the first snaps in the first preseason game among the rookies, not among all of them? How does this whole thing shake out? And how do you think the Browns want this thing to shake out? Do they even care?
Is this the most interesting quarterback room in the NFL? Because there's no logic to it. Like it's like a random collection of 4 people thrown into a quarterback room.
I think the logic makes sense because of the timeline. Let me just let's remember the timeline. They traded for Kenny Pickett, a buy low late round pick swap with the Eagles, right? So you buy low on a former first round pick, Kenny Pickett. That makes sense when you have 0 quarterbacks on your team. Then before the draft, they signed Joe Flacco, right? That was before the draft. So you bring in a veteran to compete with Kenny Pickett. Maybe that's a little redundant, but the way Flacco's played the last couple of years, if you were looking to compete, he's probably your best option to compete right now. The way he's played since coming off the couch, he's the best he's been since about 2014. And then we know how the draft shook out, right? They had a ton of picks early. They take Dillon Gabriel in the 3rd. Clearly, they liked Dillon Gabriel enough to take him in the 3rd more than other people liked him, similar to how we liked him. And then the Shedeur thing happened. He falls to the 5th round, and they take him in the 5th. So the timeline makes sense, right? Like if I don't think they opted into this quarterback room. The timeline kind of made sense for all those players to be added. So now continue. Sorry, I needed to at least rehash that.
Yeah. Because it's such a random collection of quarterbacks, it makes it very difficult to know what the plan would be. Like Joe Flacco, there are going to be a lot of supporters within the building, right? If you're a veteran player on the Browns roster who's interested in winning now, not next year, like this is the problem and the tension with this strategy of, let's play for the future. Let's go for next year. Did you just move into a prison or something? You suddenly got like light striations across your face, like you've been locked up in jail. Yeah, there you go.
I leaned forward and it's not the best lighting in Mom's basement down here. It's not best for YouTube. Lighting.
Got it.
I'll sit up. I'll sit up straight.
So yeah, like the people in the front office are like, we've got this plan. We're gonna, 2026 is gonna be our year. We're gonna shoot for next year. We're gonna push, collateral into the next year's draft, and that's when we're going to go for our thing. And this year we're going to kind of just fudge, right? We're just going to get through this year. Next year is going to be our year. Problem is, if you're a veteran player on the Browns roster, you have no interest in that. This is one of the, even if you're like secure within your place, like let's say you're Myles Garrett, you just signed your $40 million a year deal, you're like happy as a clam in terms of job security. But Myles Garrett is watching the clock run down in his own career and is like, this is one of the years I have left to win something, to, set a legacy. Like, I don't have any interest in just getting through this year to next year. This is a waste of the limited time I have on the field. It's even more the case if you're a guy whose job is in jeopardy, who this is a career year or whatever. Like, they have no interest in this, like, let's just get through the season thing. They want the best quarterback to win games right now. The best quarterback to win games right now could be Joe Flacco. And, he might be the best quarterback. Plus, he's the most obviously, he looks the most obvious NFL-wise, right? He's the tallest. That's a big thing in your favor from a quarterback point of view. He's probably got the strongest arm still. Maybe Dillon Gabriel. Let's just say he's at least got an obvious strong arm still. Like he just looks the most NFL quarterback like, right? So guys like Myles Garrett are going to be there going, there's 4 guys over there. One of them is short. One of them is kind of, gangly and was a 5th round pick and one of them's got tiny hands. So give me the big, strong guy. He's the starting quarterback. It's obvious.
Garrett's going to be comparing hand sizes. He's like, this guy, Kenny Pickett can't play. His hand's half the size as mine. So the Joe Flacco experience is really interesting because he was with the Ravens. They win the Super Bowl in 2012. I think he was always a pretty good quarterback. He had an outstanding run in 2012. After that, he never really got back to it. And he was like a reasonable starter for the next few years. And he goes to Denver, and it was like, this guy's cooked, right? He's supposed to have this big arm, and it doesn't really show up, and he can't move in the pocket. Eventually becomes a backup, retires. But I forget the exact timeline on the retirement. But basically the last 3 places Joe Flacco has been, though, he's been the best quarterback in his situation. So when he was with the Jets, he overtook Zach Wilson. Mike White was in there. And like when Joe Flacco ran the offense, it was at its best. Then he retired, comes back to the Browns, and way better than Deshaun Watson, way better than all the other quarterbacks that they've tried. Joe Flacco, the run that he had in 2023, remember, he led a playoff push for this Browns team in 2023, right? So there are enough people still in Cleveland. The whole secondary is still here. Myles Garrett, who you mentioned, the whole offensive line, pretty much, they were all there in 2023. And they remember, like, this guy brought us to the playoffs. We went into Houston and got smoked, but like, we made it to the playoffs with Joe Flacco just a couple of years ago. And the roster's a little bit worse, I think, than it was then, but it's not like it's Joe Flacco brought this team to the playoffs. And then Kenny Pickett, again, like as a buy low, presumed backup, spot starter type, like I don't mind that. So to me, it's one of Flacco or Pickett, and it's going to be like, what's your appetite for Kenny Pickett, the reclamation project, once again in this recency bias of Geno Smith and Baker Mayfield and Sam Darnold, reclamation projects coming good. The Browns took their shot on Pickett, Super Bowl champion. So I think to me, it's either like, do you actually want to win now and it's Flacco? Or do you want to see whatever you have for the future, which involves some combination of Pickett and the 2 rookies? The other part, too, is like if you get rid of Flacco, Kenny Pickett's the elder statesman in the room. Do you want him in the room as the veteran that's bringing the rookies along? Because that dynamic matters as well.
Yeah, I mean, there's also like there's a question of how many of these guys even make it out of training camp, right? This is a 4-man competition we're talking about here. Teams typically don't carry more than 3 quarterbacks on the roster. Chances are one of these guys is not making the opening day roster, maybe 2 of them. Like, who the hell knows? The Flacco thing is interesting to me, though, because he's almost like this run that you're talking about, this Jets, Browns, Colts, Browns thing. It's almost like the anti-Jameis Winston, where the vibes are good, but the actual underlying play, I don't think has been that strong or has been as strong as the vibes. Whereas Jameis, almost the other way around. It's like Jameis actually puts up some very strong numbers, but everyone still looks at it and goes, you know what? The mistakes are still so bad, you don't belong starting in the NFL. Flacco, like that run with the Jets, over 3 seasons or whatever it was, he had 14 touchdowns and 6 picks, right? On the turnover to interception ratio, that's really good. But in one of those years, he had 3 big-time throws to 7 turnover-worthy plays, and that's kind of been consistent throughout this entire run with Jets, Colts, and Browns, that the touchdown interception ratio has been good. He's been throwing a ton of yards, but like he's got, I think, more turnover-worthy plays to big-time throws in that entire run over like 5-6 years. It's this weird, like, poisonous underlying metric standard that's actually had weirdly good results. Not necessarily good enough for them to win things, but good enough for everyone to sort of go, you know what, Joe Flacco's still got some armory to go. You know, he can still be a quarterback here.
Yeah, I've oversimplified it. And look, I know he hit a wall last year. It's not like he's always played better. I think did they get shut out against Minnesota or almost shut out or whatever it was. I mean, it wasn't like he was always better. All I know is whether it was luck or not, 3 offenses got better. And there's probably some signal in that. And there's definitely some signal in what you're saying. Like, dude, this is unsustainable. If you have more turnover-worthy plays than big-time throws, historically, you're not going to have the great results. You're just not going to. So at the end of the day, a lot of this comes down to what are the Browns' goals this year? Because if I'm thinking long-term for the Browns, and if they're thinking long-term, and there's signal that they are thinking long-term because they traded for a first-round pick next year, and they were willing to give up number 2. If the goal is be in great position in 2026, when, by the way, a bunch of their offensive line contracts are coming up, secondary contracts are coming up. Like, they've got a lot of resetting to do in this organization. If that's the goal, then I think if they truly believed in Kenny Pickett, you might want to see what you have in Kenny Pickett if he could be the next whoever. But I think you got to see what you have in the rookies. Take the drama out of it. Shedeur Sanders, Dillon, Gabriel, at some point, you want to know what you have in those guys, the same way you want to know what you have in Tyler Shuck in New Orleans, because a year from now, there's a really good chance the Browns have a top 5 pick, and they're debating between Arch Manning and Lenora Sellers and Garrett Nussmeier, et cetera, versus Dillon Gabriel or Shedeur Sanders for the future.
But it almost feels like the goal then becomes like keeping various segments of people happy. Like, we're not even like, this is such a write-off year that really our goal now is to just make sure nobody throws their toys out of the pram and, blows the whole thing up. Like, Myles Garrett doesn't just throw a strop because I'm starting a bunch of rookies that have no business being his quarterback. So if that's the sequence, then like number one is going into the season with your veterans happy. So Joe Flacco wins the starting job coming out of training camp. Then once it becomes quite obvious that Joe Flacco is not a good starting quarterback anymore and the Browns are losing games and the season's going badly, well, then we can turn the keys over to one of the rookies, and that makes the fan base happy because, look, they love seeing young guys come in and start. And, okay, that might have a limited runway because they're probably not good either. So we get to start Joe Flacco for like a month, right? That gets us through September. Then we get to toss the keys to Dillon Gabriel. That gives us a month of watching Dillon Gabriel struggle. And then we can toss the keys to Shedeur, and we get the bump for Shedeur in, early November, and that'll survive for a while. And then we just figure out how to get the hell out of December, and then then we're out. Then we've got the number 2 overall pick. We got 2 first-round picks, and we can go draft a proper quarterback next year.
Hey, guys, just taking a quick break to tell you, hey, just over 50% of you are still unsubscribed to Check the Mic. It helps the channel. It helps to make sure that you don't miss any of our shows. So if you have a chance, hit the subscribe button right now. Is that how it's going to play out? How do you think this plays out? Because my prediction is I'm torn on this because I don't think you want Flacco and Pickett on the roster at the same time. But like the rumblings coming out of Chicago where the veteran quarterback in Chicago for Caleb Williams was year 2 player Tyson Bagent as the backup. Yeah. It's like that's the guy that's so they bring in Case Keenum, right? You just bring in the older backup to help him learn how to watch film. Somebody's got to watch film with this guy. Somebody's got to bring him along. Is Kenny Pickett, does he have veteran status enough to be that guy, or do you make it Flacco? And of course, look, Flacco, I loved his answers when people asked him about that. He's like, no, my job is not to mentor quarterbacks. He's like, I'm not even going to answer this question because you guys are going to twist it, which is right. Like, the media twists this thing all the time. Do you want to compete for the job, or are you going to mentor the quarterbacks? It's like you can't give a right answer, but the answer is you're obviously trying to win the job, and your job is not to mentor guys. It doesn't mean you're a loser or a jerk that you're not like trying to teach Shedeur Sanders the playbook. So, but I don't think Flacco's going to lurk around this entire season as a mentor because if there is a QB injury or whatever it might be, somebody's calling Flacco. So I don't think Flacco and Pickett are both on the team. Who's actually the best option here?
I don't know. I think they could be because I don't know that both rookies are making the team. That's my thing. Like they can't carry 4 quarterbacks, right? Now maybe one of them can get through the practice squad, and that might be the way they do it. Like Shedeur gets cut before training camp, or not before training camp. Shedeur gets cut before the season in the last round of cuts, and they try and sneak him through to the practice squad. I don't know if he would make it. Even as a guy that slipped to the 5th round, is somebody picking him up?
Sorry to interrupt, but like he probably would, right? I mean, we're talking every team passed on him in the 5th. Who was it the Broncos or Dolphins? It was the Broncos that thought they were going to take him as a UDFA, right? That was the report that Sean Payton was going to bring him in. But I don't know if there's going to be a whole lot of demand for Shedeur Sanders on waivers.
No, but I think it would change. I think the whole math has shifted since the draft, where if he got cut before the season, I think it's a very different thing than drafting him. Like, I think quite a few teams would be interested in that. Maybe he would make it through to the Browns practice squad, but I don't know. I think some teams might be interested in picking him up, even knowing you have to carry him on the active roster at that point. Anyway, that might be their way out of this, right? Is to try and do effectively what the Giants have done this season, where you've got starter, you've got backup veteran in Jameis, and you have rookie. If the Browns end up out of this with Joe Flacco wins the starting job, Kenny Pickett is the veteran backup, and Dillon Gabriel is sitting here on the roster ready to come in, a month into the season when things have gone to hell with the veterans, and then they try and sneak Shedeur onto the practice squad. That makes some sense to me. Now, this could all change depending on how I think this is the one competition where I think it is completely down to how these guys play in training camp. Like, they are incentivized to seeing, how either of these rookies perform. They obviously like Dillon Gabriel. I think there's a chance that Dillon Gabriel will dramatically outperform his draft position, and he could win the job in training camp. Like, he could justify the degree of praise that the degree of faith that the Browns had in him, and also easily, jump over Kenny Pickett or even Joe Flacco and be a starter for this team. Similarly, Shedeur Sanders, as much as the league kind of wrote him off in the draft, I still think has the potential to be one of the best quarterbacks in this draft. And if he immediately shows up and is like, okay, I'm still the most accurate quarterback in this draft, I'm still an elite processor, and by the way, a lot of the negativity in terms of taking sacks and, dithering in the pocket was an offensive line problem rather than a Shedeur Sanders problem. Like, if that's obvious quickly, he could easily jump Gabriel like immediately and again be pushing to start. So this is a weird one because I think there's so many outcomes that are possible for this. With the Saints battle, I think the outcomes are pretty limited and minimal. The Browns one is chaotic because almost anything could happen.
Yeah. So what you said about Sanders, like sneaking him through to the practice squad, I think that is a viable option. I'm gonna predict though Pickett's the starter. I think Flacco's the odd man out. Kenny Pickett is the starter. Dillon Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. And this is a slight case study in what you think is ridiculous. What I always draft a quarterback every year, bring in two, who cares? But the question is, you don't have enough reps to go around. How do you know what you have? So there's a little bit of a case study here where Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders, what's the rep mix? What's the snap count mix in preseason games? This is where I think the Browns would love to have the 4 preseason games instead of 3, like you had historically. Like, younger teams would love to have more reps to just get more evaluation opportunities. So I can't wait to see how that breaks down, because like I said, you and I both had Shedeur Sanders as QB2 in this draft, but we both had Gabriel as QB4. I mean, we both had them ranked pretty close, but we had Shedeur, we expected him to go in the first round, and wouldn't be surprising if he's better. And I also wouldn't be surprised if Gabriel was as good as what we thought he could be, but it might take him a bit of time to get going. So Gabriel versus Sanders, I'll be watching very closely during training camp and during the preseason.
The reps thing is huge. I don't know in today's NFL how you give 4 quarterbacks significant reps. Like, I just don't know how that's possible, that they get any kind of meaningful look. So this is, again, it's unusual for the Browns, because I think they would, if you really wanted to come up with who the best quarterback is for this team this year, 4 guys genuinely deserve significant reps here. I don't know where the reps are coming from. Like, how do you possibly give all 4 of these guys a reasonable shot at proving they can be the guy, particularly with like the first team? I mean, forget just number of reps period, but like with a viable supporting cast, with the guys that are supposed to be playing football in October rather than the guys that are just there to make up training camp numbers. I don't know how that's possible. So I think you need to end up making decisions very quickly so you can then streamline the reps, and you can then, start to funnel the reps where you think they're going to make a difference. Again, that makes this more and more difficult, because you have to make these snap decisions rather than saying everyone is going to get 25% of the reps all the way through training camp in a month, and maybe there's enough volume sample size wise to make a call. You don't have that luxury. You need to decide, like, after a week, which guy is the odd guy out, because that guy's going to start getting 2 reps a day, right? Because we need to give the other, we need to actually funnel the reps where the reps make sense. Like, it's a very difficult environment now to do what the Browns are doing, to have like 4 quarterbacks who all have a theoretical, realistic chance of winning the job.
All I know is I'm ready for training camp completion percentages. I'm ready for all that. Shedeur
ones.
I know. Shedeur Sanders, was it Shedeur that completed 95% of his passes somewhere? Like who wasn't there some? Oh no, JJ McCarthy was at like 95% completion rate in training camp. I'm ready in minicamp. I'm ready for all of it. Shedeur Sanders goes 10 for 12 with 6 touchdowns, and then like during red zone work, right? Where your brain says, oh, 6 touchdowns. It's like, yeah, they were all red zone plays. Of course they're going to be touchdowns. So just be ready. Just be ready for the completion percentages.
Predict the Browns quarterback depth chart week 1.
I'm going to go Kenny Pickett, Dillon Gabriel, Shedeur Sanders. I think they're going to have Pickett start, and one of Gabriel or Sanders will get a shot relatively quickly after pedestrian play from Kenny Pickett.
I think it's going to be Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Dillon Gabriel, 1, 2, 3. And then I think Shedeur is either cut or practice squatted.
One thing I could promise you, as Check the Mic listeners and viewers, we're going to go live every time Shedeur Sanders and or Dillon Gabriel plays
touches of football.
Oh, my gosh, yeah. Look, we need views, too. It's not just ESPN. We need views, too. We saw significant growth talking about Shedeur Sanders. And he's fun to watch. He's a fun quarterback to watch. I enjoy watching Shedeur Sanders. I loved watching Colorado games. I actually kind of like the way he operates. So, anyway, we're going to be – we can instantly react to Shedeur Sanders every preseason outing. We're going to do it.
Final question. What would you do? So that's what we've predicted what we think week 1 will look like. If it was GM Steve, what would GM Steve's 3-man depth chart be?
I think it's probably the same. It's Pickett and then some combination of Gabriel or Sanders. I know I ranked Sanders higher. So theoretically I should say Kenny Pickett, Shedeur Sanders, Dillon Gabriel.
Right.
I was predicting, well, the Browns clearly liked Dillon Gabriel more than Shedeur Sanders as far as drafting goes. That doesn't mean they had a better on-field evaluation of Gabriel versus Sanders. So I don't know how that plays out. But I would say I would try to give Gabriel or Shedeur as many reps as possible. And then however it shakes out. And I hope that I find one good quarterback between those two, and then you still might draft one a year from now. So I would give them as many reps as possible. But I would probably say, like, Pickett's the starter. I'm not interested in Joe Flacco because I'm looking to 2026. I'd go Pickett and then let the rookies battle, but give them a ton of reps to battle it out.
Yeah, so I kind of agree. The change I would make to my predicted depth chart is I would lose Kenny Pickett. I would immediately call up everybody in the NFL and find out if I could get anything for Kenny Pickett right now, like not even get into training camp with him. I would. If anyone will give me anything for Kenny Pickett, I will trade his ass immediately. If not, I'm cutting him and I'm not letting him take up too many reps in training camp. And I would probably still start Joe Flacco week 1 because I think that makes the most people happy within the building. And then the very second Joe Flacco has a shitty game, which I would assume comes reasonably quickly, turning the keys to one rookie, and then I'm seeing how long that guy lasts, and then I'm giving the keys to the next rookie, and then I'm just getting my way through this season.
The point you keep making about the veterans and how they're not interested in looking a year from now, and that's where Flacco definitely appeases that best as far as week 1, the guise of winning, but that could run out pretty quickly in a few weeks.
Thanks for watching all the way to the end of our video.
For more great content, click here to subscribe and here to watch another video. We'll see you again soon.